Welcome to Women on It, PhD Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack Delivered will be by Dr. Birgit Felden. Today's topic, how to create a succession plan for your business. Episode 52 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on Women on It, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my motto. And empathy is critical when you are creating a succession plan for your business. Before we dive into the topic, let me mention a few highlights. Well, I would like to congratulate to Dr. Jackie Taylor, founder of Empathy Economy, on joining Gen UK as an advisor Net Zero. Well done to Nisrin Deep, first executive director of Lebanese League of Women in Business, for her successful Women in Leadership Day. And I'm excited to listen to Emma Stroud's new podcast. You should listen to it too, Cloning Around Menopause with Sarah Davies. And finally, congratulations to our great supporter and previous guest, Shiba Wilson, on the successful Live to Lead TCI conference as she led the Young Women in Leadership panel. Well, let's go to how to create a succession plan for your business. Starting or running a business is no easy feat. It takes a lot of time and consideration to build a company. Just like any other business, a family business needs careful planning for it to operate and run successfully. One of the important aspects to consider in managing a family business is creating a strong succession plan that will prevent any conflict in the future. Professor Dr. Birgit Felden brings her experience from around 30 years as an entrepreneur, board member, and active supervisory board member as she advises companies on strategic and financial issues and on family businesses governance. After getting her doctorate in law in Bonn, she founded a family business in 1995, where she was a board member until 2015 and a supervisory board member until 2018. Since 2006, she has been head of Entrepreneurship and Succession program, and since 2008, she's the founding director of the Research Institute for Entrepreneurships, SMEs and Family Businesses at the HWR Berlin, where she develops concepts and instruments for family businesses. She's an author, a speaker, and also a financial expert and an entrepreneurial sparring partner on various supervisory and advisory boards since 1998. Due to her many years of experience, Dr. Felden has an excellent network in companies, credit institutions, universities, and politics. And this is how we met. We actually met not that long ago, Birgit, is that correct? In a beautiful location, somewhere in the middle of Europe during the European Summit.
That's right. It was in Porto Ross, Beata.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Slovenia was exciting, buzzing new word after 2 years of sabbatical. We didn't have a chance to meet. And finally we met, and I thought, I've got to have you on our show. So Birgit, tell me, what would be your ideal description of succession planning?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me in this show. It's a new situation for me. I really love to talk to you, even on the video. And thanks so much for the invitation. Yes, what is a real good plan? A real good succession plan includes the question whether which kind of company might be interesting for me, might fit with my knowledge, might fit with my interest, could be interesting for life. It's not that different from starting up a business. You should have a lot of motivation and interest to take over a company. And this is the first question. The second question is how to find that company that fits to my experience, to my interest, and so it's very important to talk to a lot of people coming from the branch, from the region where I would like to found the business and to take over. And the third step is to negotiate all the details that are important for, on the one hand side, the successor, but on the other hand side, also the predecessor. So succession planning is always a question of negotiating things, and you should be tolerant on both sides to get a good matching. And the fourth question, and unfortunately, a lot of people see it as a first question. The fourth question is how to assure it with a good contract and how to optimize it by tax, for example. These are, on my hand side, the technical is a technical part, and it follows the strategic part.
So you're talking from the perspective of, I'm a female entrepreneur. I would like to step into a ready business rather than start my business from the scratch.
Yeah.
What about somebody who's been doing a business and is thinking about retiring? How to find a person who could replace you?
It's the same way, the other way around. You should start early. You should talk to potential successors. You should go to, for example, multipliers who have contact to those groups. That could be the Chamber of Commerce, that could be banks, that could be business networks in your region. And sometimes predecessors are afraid of their competitors, that they might say, "Oh, this company is going to stop the business," or something like that. But I think that's the wrong way. If you start early and see as a predecessor and see the succession job, let's say it's a succession job, as a strategic task you have to solve, any investigation you have to do in or investment you have to do in your company, then it becomes a little bit less emotional, and I think it's easier to tackle that situation.
Right. You, Birgit, you are in a very vibrant city quite often. You're lecturing in Berlin, but on a daily basis, you don't live in Berlin. Is that correct?
That's right. I'm living with my family in Cologne. That's in the western part, in the middle west of Germany, nearby the Netherlands.
Beautiful location. It's much easier to find this network of people when you're living in a big country. How would you say would be your advice if you're living in a small country like Malta? Would the only option be going abroad, or do you think there is a way to find companies?
Two parts of my answer. The first answer is maybe it's much easier if you're living in a small country because you know each other much better. You're more into contact to your economic network, your business network, and maybe it's easier to find someone who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows a potential successor or predecessor. On the other hand, if there really is nobody who fits to this special company, you need to go abroad, yes. And in my opinion, I'm working on the topic since 30 years, more or less. It has become much more easier to get into contact to people who are globally oriented, who are open-minded to other cultures, who are able and willing to take over a company that is not in their home-based country, or the other way around. And of course, business has become much more global. So it could be a really a success factor if you take over a company and bring in that company another culture, another network from abroad. And so it could be a way of growing It's an easier way of growing. So I think this could be a really good chance.
When I think of succession planning, and I actually spoke to my girlfriends, they were saying, well, it's like Gucci, right? They watched a Gucci movie and they are thinking about the family structure with their backstabbing and all the histories. Is that reality, Birgit, or it's just a myth that there is lots of tension?
There are lots of different ways, but taking over an existing running business, this can mitigate the risk a little bit during an initial startup period. So I think it is really a chance and a good way of starting a business, beside all challenges, of course. And there are very different ways to take over a company. The first one, what you're talking about, is the inner family succession, and this has, of course, a label of tradition, of maybe of chains or something like that. But this is not reality. Even in those big family businesses or business families, let's say that way, there are young, well-educated people. There are people that know that they have to be excellent educated to take over the company and to bring it forward, that it has a future. Beside that, these inner family business transfers, we also have the external transfers, and there are also two groups. The first group are employees of the company that are willing and interesting to take over the company, and they know the company very, very well. They know very well the burdens and the challenges, but also the success factors of the company. And maybe they think since years, oh, I could have done that and that better, and this might push the company forward. And the third group, those are the external successors. Those people coming from abroad, maybe from another country, but also from another company to take over those company, and they bring fresh input in the company. Fresh ideas, fresh experiences, and this could be a chance as well.
So I have to mention a prime example of succession planning. Virginia Rometty's succession as CEO of IBM in 2012 is a case of internal succession planning done well. Rometty's advancement worked well because of her cultural fit and because of the professional development systems inside the IBM that allowed her to succeed based on merit and become IBM's first female CEO. HR analyst Josh Bersin said of Rometty's appointment, IBM's talent management process is very mature, integrated, and global. At the executive level, the company takes development planning and succession very seriously. So, what would you say is the right approach to do the internal succession planning well?
Well, we have to divide between those management successions to become part of the management team and the succession of the owner. What I'm talking about is the succession of the whole company. So it's as well the management succession, the management take over the management, and also taking over the ownership. But in the end, it's the same thing. You need to have a structured plan. You need to have you have to talk to the people. That's really one of the most important ways. You have to talk to people, what your plans are. You have to be honest to them, and you have to show them your strategy for the future. You have it's leadership. It's nothing like leadership. Talking about a CEO position, you have to be or become a really good leader.
Beautiful. Absolutely, as simple as that. We have got question from Olga Vastina. Gosh, Professor Dr. Felden bringing a greenfield approach to dealing with succession. Love it. Her question is, what advisors do you need when buying or selling a business which is in a succession transaction?
Yeah, that's a really good question. First of all, I think you need a good friend. You need somebody who is honest, who give you real good advice, and who knows you, who knows what is good for you and what is not good for you. You need somebody you trust to talk to. That could be a good friend. It could be another entrepreneur. It could be someone, of course, an expert in business succession. This is the first thing. Somebody who gives you advice in an emotional question, because this topic is emotional, and there will always be situations where you think, oh, is this the right company? These are the right persons, and so on. The next advisor you need is somebody who knows the process. Who know the process to help you with the challenges, that you do not forget anything, and that guides you, the person who guides you through the process. Because this process usually takes you 3 to 5 years. Succession planning is not a question of a couple of weeks or months. It takes you from the first beginning till the end. It takes you 3 to 5 years till everything works fine. And so this is there is a need of guidance in the process. And the third thing is a person who is who knows the actual tax and legal, all this tax and legal stuff, who helps you with the contracts, who give you advice for financing a transfer. This is mostly, especially with external succession, it's really one of the big topics, how to finance a business, about valuation and all that. Some of the things you might know by yourself. Maybe you're a tax expert, you're a legal expert, or know a lot about valuation and financing. But I think especially those counterparts for the emotional and for the process question, these people are very important.
So in terms of valuation, do you just ask one advisor whether it's valued correctly, or do you look around and speak to some, let's say, maybe competitors who have a good knowledge of the business?
It depends on the size of the company and on the branch and where you are. I can speak about Germany. We have a really good, well-educated Chamber of Commerce system, and all the companies have to be member of the Chamber of Commerce, and they offer, for example, for the smaller companies, they offer consulting in valuation, and this is a solution for the smaller companies, for example, or some networking clubs. They offer sometimes also consulting, and of course there are specialists in valuation for the bigger companies that consultants, specialized consultants who help the bigger companies by evaluating the company. I'm professor, as you said, in the School of Economics and Law in Berlin, and I have a research, or I'm the director of a research institute, and we have developed a website with a lot of tools and instruments for business succession. And there is also a valuation tool, an online valuation tool. It is free of cost because it has been paid by taxes by the Ministry of Economy in Germany, and we developed it 5 years ago, and it's a very important tool for especially the small companies and also for consultants to evaluate companies. And actually we have about 1,000 valuations per month with that tool.
So have you worked your succession plan?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
I already sold. two aspects. The first aspect is we are a family business too, and besides my activity in the company, my husband is also part of the member of the board of this company. But I sold a couple of shares to a young employee a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and this January he becomes part. He's the CEO or one of the management team. He's a junior CEO, let's say it that way. So he's actually he did his next step in becoming my or our successor.
Fantastic. So was it a long process of realization that you have to talk the talk and walk the talk?
Not that much, because it's you can, how do you say, you cannot pray wine and water and drink wine. So you have to do what you. It's my specialty. I'm an expert in business success, and so I have to do it by my own, of course. And this young man, he started, I think, 8 years ago in my company after his studies, and well, he has entrepreneurial thinking, and he is very flexible in mind, and it fits from our culture. And so I think really fast after 1 or 2 years, I became the idea that this could be a good successor for my position or for my business. And then we started talking about that, and then he took the first part of the shares, and it was a minimal part of the shares. It was 5 years ago, and this last year he took another part of the shares. Now he has a qualified minority, and become part of the management of the management team. And so of course it is a process. It took also 5 years, as I said, 3 to 5 years. But I think much more interesting is how I handled it. I can remember a situation where I was it's a Société Anonyme, so we have a so-called Aufsichtsrat, board, a supervisory board, and I changed from executive to the supervisory board, but I'm still working a little bit in the company, and they asked me something about a marketing stuff we developed, and I thought, this is not the actual guideline, and why did they use that? And then I stopped thinking or talking, and I stopped and said, oh, it's no longer my job. They have to do it by themselves. And if it's for them, it's okay, then it's okay. And this learning was very, very important for me to stay a little bit backward from the operating stuff. And of course, I'm interested in the strategic development of the company, and I give advice and all that, but I'm no longer responsible for any operational thing. And I had to learn that. And there was one moment when I recognized it, and then it was okay for me.
So that was a moment of I have to be able to say no and be assertive. How did it change your workflow?
Well, I have other tasks, absolutely other tasks. I'm not longer responsible for any employee in the company. I'm no longer responsible for daily business, and so I can focus on strategic aspects and have much more room for my other jobs. I'm a member of supervisory boards in 5 companies, large family-owned companies, and this is very interesting for me. And so I can focus on these points beside the academic tasks I have.
So the question might be, in terms of boards and members of boards, do you see a lot of diversity, or is it usually white guys talking to white guys about other white guys?
Yes, elder white guys. That was very interesting in times of Corona, because sometimes I had the idea that these elder white men much more afraid of the internet than of Corona, and so we had all our meetings in reality and presence.
There you go. We have another question. Birgit, is there a limit to how many supervisory board positions it is good to hold?
Another interesting question. Yes, I think, and it depends if you are the chairman of the board or a member of the board. I think if you're a member of, and of course it depends on the size of the company and the situation in which the company is. If you have a company in crisis, you need much more time to support, to intervene, to control, and to do all the jobs you have to do, and so it is limited. I think I have 5 positions in boards, 5 companies, and in 2 of them I'm the chairman of the board, and for me it's absolutely enough. I would not be able to do one more chairman position, maybe one or 2 more member positions, but I do not want. With this amount, I have enough time for every company. These companies are not in the same branch; they are totally different. What for me, it's absolutely interesting because I'm curious. I love to learn new things. So for me, it's the right way. But with this amount, it's absolutely enough for me. And I think if you do it serious, 4 or 5 mandates, or 4 to 6, let's say 4 to 6 is absolutely enough.
We are going into the women on the board positions discussion. One question I wanted to ask you, since we are talking about the board position, how did you secure these 5 boards?
Secure in what way?
Well, you're the chosen one of the few women who are invited to be part of the board, not to mention chair the 2 boards that you are chairing at the moment.
Well, and securing the company, or how do you mean that?
I mean, how did you find the board position? I mean, did you apply for?
No, you do not ask for such a job. You would have been asked. So it's usually a part, if you have a good network, and of course people know that you are part of an advisory board. They ask you for other advisory boards, and there is a it's a union for active members of the boards, and I'm in that group. I am one of I'm also in the executive board of this club, let's say that way, and association, and I'm a part of the executive board, and of course it's also a way to talk to other members of the board, and if they are looking for a new board member and it fits from my experience, from that what I can bring in, they ask me, and it's the other way around. If I have I know a position that has to be filled, I ask in this network if there is somebody, or if somebody knows somebody who could be able to fulfill this position.
Well, as we had a discussion with Kelly Howie about your network as a network and the power of your network, discussion was happening just last year, and we had a highlight. Check out our video highlight on Instagram, LinkedIn and Facebook, as well as YouTube channel. It's definitely useful whether you are creating a succession plan for your business or you want to be the successor. Let's go back to role identification. So I heard that you have to identify the role that you want to offer this new person, whether it's a CEO, whether it's an owner. How does it go in your succession plans, Birgit?
In my personal, or when I help other companies?
When you help other companies.
Well, I established, or I invented, I created a method that has, it's a process of 3 steps. The first step is to develop, to discuss like something like the best successor in world, let's say that way. So you establish like something like a profile on the qualifications and the competences that fits best possible to the position that is needed. And these characters could be from either business competences, but also personal competences. And the third part are entrepreneurial competences. And it's different from a description, a position description in a greater company. If you consult with small and medium-sized enterprises, there is not the right successor. You should develop the right person for this company in this situation. You need another person if you have a 20-person company or a 2,000-person company. You need another person if this company is in a strategic position of a crisis or of development. And so you have to fulfill this plan for the ideal person. This is the first step. The second step is then to discuss with the owners, who has to decide, or the supervisory board, this profile. And the third step then is to have an assessment with the candidates or the candidate about this profile, and to check whether there is a good fitting or not that good fitting. And with this idea, this way, with this process, I think it's a very serious way to develop good successes.
Right, you probably have seen some failures along the way. Can you talk or give us examples of what we should avoid in the future if we are planning succession of our company or our business?
Well, the recipe for success is, I think, actually simple. You have to have clear votes, clear plans, and you have to talk. And above all, it's important to agree on who is allowed to decide what and where, and who has to keep its finger out of the pie. So the most of the problems occur when it is not clear which person is able and allowed to decide, whether the elder generation or the younger generation. And then it comes to conflicts, often emotional conflicts. And if you cannot bring that back to your usual plan, you're lost.
So communication is vital. Also, talking about what is the plan is vital, and talking to your team about what the plan is, because everybody has to be on the same page.
And team means often, in the smaller companies, team means often family too.
Absolutely. Is there somebody, have you met somebody in the team that was a Grinch who wanted to spoil the Christmas?
Of course. This occurs especially if you have an inner company succession. It's very difficult to change the position from a colleague to the chef.
And how do you avoid?
You always have people who think that they are much better than the selected person as successor.
How do you avoid that conflict? Is there a way to avoid the, fighting for the role?
Not always, but in the most of the time, it helps to talk in advance to the team, to take the team with you, as you said before, to discuss what will change, what will stay, to talk open about ressentiments, to talk open about fear, and to make clear what will happen if you will be the new management.
So would you say that having this shadowing person, even though it's passed over to the new person, would it be useful to have this person still overlooking the business, the processes?
The predecessor?
Yes.
That depends on how he or she is able to stay away from the daily business. That's I was talking about my own opinion before, and there are some, especially in the smaller companies, there are some of the often elder white men that are not able to stay away from the process, who always think that he is much more experienced, and of course he would, or she, sometimes also she, the elder generation, they would like to help, especially if it's in a family succession, but that's not useful. Everybody has to make its own experience, and of course get through some bad situations. That's necessary to develop.
And hiccups are useful.
It's useful. Yeah, it's not helpful if the elder. It's like parents and child. Your child need to make their own experience, and so it's the same thing with in the company. It's not different, and so yes, the elder generation, the predecessors, are helpful when they in the backyard, when they signalize, "I'm here if you need me, but you have to come."
Right. So if you have a predecessor that is very much command and control person, what would be your advice to the successor?
Help him to find a new job, help him to find something that is really interesting for him, so he is not longer interested in your company.
So there is no great way about this command and control obsession, right? There would have to be a different leader to really make it a success.
Right.
There you go. Right. So we know what to avoid. You mentioned how to find companies to take over. Have you so you talked about the chance for women to become an entrepreneur with a lower risk. And can you tell us what we should know about when jumping on board of a ready business?
Well, let me add something on the question whether business succession could be a chance, especially for women, because I think it's an experience from the last 30 years. Sometimes for women it is easier to take over a business than for men, because women, it's my personal experience, women are sometimes more tolerant with the predecessors, these typically elder men, and the predecessor usually do not feel the necessity that he has to demonstrate his power in front of a woman as a successor than in front of a man. It's a very funny experience I made, and I think this is one of the really big advantages for women in taking over a business.
Would you say that empathy is very helpful? I mean, in terms of being females, usually they have more feelings towards team members and more empathetic. They are more empathetic. They have higher sensitivity when it comes to doing social good and making money simultaneously.
I think so. These are the so-called soft skills, I think, that are very important in our times, not only in succession times, but also in entrepreneurial behavior, it has become much more important and for success. And these soft skills are, in my opinion, not every woman and none men or something like that, but there are some soft skills I find more often when I have a look on successful women, like curiosity, the ability to listen, the ability to see and take chances, to step a moment behind and think about it. And as you said, the true empathy, the interest in people. I learned, for example, when I founded my company in 95, I learned that I benefit not from being into contact to important people, but to people I like, to people I that are sympathetic. I would love to have a coffee with. I benefit from those people and not from the important one. And the last thing I would like to remember, I would like to add, it's also a soft skill, I think. I think more women have something like a staying power. They stay on their jobs. They do what is need to be done, and they do not fly from one task to the other.
Fantastic. I like to have a discussion with people. I like to have coffee. I'm very glad that we had that coffee when we were during the conference. Birgit, I couldn't agree with you more. That networking and having discussion is very useful to broadening your perspective as well as knowledge. In terms of preparing for succession, in terms of successor, are there any books or any resources that are useful, apart from the website that you mentioned, that you could recommend to us?
Well, there are a lot of books. There is especially but they are German books. I think it's a typical German thing to see this process of taking over a business. And there is one book I really appreciate. It's called Women in Succession. It's a direct translation, and it handles the process it's a little bit story driven. There are two female successors who took over the company, and they describe the process and the failures, but also the success factors. And I really like that book. And of course, I wrote 2 books about business succession. I like them too.
There you go. I can remember one very funky video I watched, comedy series on Netflix about working moms, and there is one very successful entrepreneur who takes over her competitor and is very successful. So there is lots of stories, lots of inspiration, and we have Birgit we can ask today, and we have another question from Olga Vasina, who's keen on asking Birgit another question. Olga is asking, isn't the problem, though, that in family business, men are always given priority over women siblings in family business succession? Or is that changing in Germany?
It is still a little bit like this, but it has changed a lot, especially during the last 5 years, 6 years. I mentioned that there is people become aware of women, of daughters, especially daughters, as successors, and that these daughters are not the second choice. If the brother does not want to take over the company or something like that, the sister has to do it, or but that they are, especially the women, are well educated, and they have and maybe this is an advantage. They have the freedom to decide to take over the company. They are not obliged as the sons had been in former times. So it was usually that the son took over the company. The first took the company, the second goes to the military, and the third goes to the church. And this these times, and we did not talk about women, of course. These times are over, but there is still a little bit of an obligation for the sons to take over the company, and this gave women, young women, the opportunity to decide what they want to do, how they prepare themselves for a succession or for whatever they want to do in career. And so I think this is one of the reasons why especially the elder generation recognize during the last 5 to 6 years that we have a mass of well-educated women, and we need them to take over the companies, and they are really brilliant. I have actually in my boards, I have in these companies, I have 2 women in 2 different companies. I have 2 women who are on their way to take over the company. In one, it's 2 girls and 1 boy, and in another company, it's only one woman who is going to take over. And I think that's the reason, because we have these, I mentioned the book Women in Succession, and there are some books during the last 4 or 5 years who have been written about women and succession. And so this, yes, I could say it has changed. It is on the way to change. Let's say it that way.
I love it. It is on the way to change, and change is not happening out of own volition. If you want that job, go for it. It reminds me also, Birgit, this very nice conference organized in 2019 somewhere in London. I attended a panel that consisted of 3 women and a man, and they were talking about what needs to be done, what needs to be changed in order to have more women on boards or more women in leadership position. And I remember I was boiling when I heard one man the man on the panel suggesting that women need to have ambition. Is that the case? Do women are they lacking ambition? What's your observation?
No.
As simple as that.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. What do we need? We have a discussion in Germany saying that there are few women that want to go to a board or something like that it's their fault and they could not decide and whatever. And I think that's not the point. The point is that we have to. It's difficult to explain. I think it should be more normal. It should be. I'm not a person who said we need a quote or we need this or that. I think it should become more usual. It's not necessary whether we are men or women or whatever. There are a lot of other diverse things, and this should be not the point. The point should be that every person who wants to be should have the chance. And I think in my boards, I have these elder men, but talking to them, it is not a problem that they are not open-minded to women. That was when I started. It is the first membership of a board is about 16 years ago, and I had 2 elder men. The one was the chairman of the board, and I was a simple member. Today I'm the chairman of that board, but when I started, I was a member of the board, a small board with 3 members or 3 people. And these 2 elder men, they were so friendly to me, friendly as they are to a younger woman. And they could not handle me like a colleague. They did not handle me like a colleague. And this has changed totally. So today, in my experience, it has become much more easier. And so I can only say, if you know what you can, and if you know what you want, stand up and say what you want.
Absolutely. Stand up and say what you want. I have to say that I'm pro quotas because at the moment we are living in a biased world. And the concept is it's always the white men that get chosen because they are white. So why not reverse that and choose women because they are women, and women are necessary to represent the society as it really is. So 50-50.
Beata, I can understand that, but what would you do with the diverse people? They need a quote too, or don't they?
Absolutely. Let's go
we need a quote for elder and younger, and then we need a quote for colored or non-colored, and so on. And when will we stop the quote?
Well, it's very interesting what you're asking, Birgit, because you're coming from a nation that is very diverse, especially Berlin has got quite a lot of representatives of different nations, different people with different colors, backgrounds, disability, because when we are talking about diversity, it's not just diversity of sex, it's race, ethnicity, beliefs, religious beliefs. So we definitely need the constructive power that is going to deconstruct some of the bias to help us progress in a creative way. Whether it's a small business, whether it's a big business, it is definitely necessary to have different objectives.
And I think we need new concepts for that. In my opinion, it's not an easy way between men and women. We need new concepts for diversity. I'm absolutely. I think it's absolutely important to have a diverse, of course, we have a diverse society and we need diverse management, diverse boards and so on. And therefore we need new concepts.
Absolutely. So let's go back to the succession planning discussion with Birgit Felden. What are typical challenges when taking over a company? If you could name 3.
What are typical challenges? That the process starts too late, that there is illness or an external event that need a succession planning, and there is no planning if you are too late. That's the first challenge. Often it starts too late. The second challenge is that there is no professional process, that there is no real planning. When I started my last semester, I had a student who said, I cannot imagine that we will talk 1 year about business succession. It's easy. We go to a lawyer and we sign a contract and then it's over. And after this year, he told me, now I know how complex it is, and that we, of course, need a plan for it. So the second part is planning, the professional planning process. And the third part, something that is often forgotten. During that process, it takes about 3 years, something could happen, even to the successor and to the predecessor. And you need an accidental planning. And you need a plan if something happens that could have not been planned. And usually entrepreneurs say, an accident? Never. There won't be an accident for me. And especially the younger people, they do not think about accidents, illness, and so on. And they need to be prepared for it. If you think about a small company, if the entrepreneur has an accident, it could not have been open. Or let's talk a little bit more modern. Nobody else knows the passwords for the computer. They could not work. Or thinking about a bakery, a very practical example. Thinking about a bakery, there is the recipe for the well-known cake or whatever, and it is only in the mind of the entrepreneur. This has not been written down. Or thinking about who can sign a contract. I have been a consultant for a large company with 2 brothers, and one of the brothers, one of them had an accident on the tennis court, and he fell in coma. I think it's international too, in English too. He was not dead, but he was not alive. He was in coma, and there was the other brother who was not able. He was the minor decider in the company, and he was not able to get the right decisions, and therefore the company was breaking down.
So let's face it. Nobody could imagine COVID, and it happened. So not many companies were prepared for this. And Olga says, as Dwight Eisenhower said, plans are worthless, but planning is everything. Right. Family business is a never-ending journey, one that is continually evolving. Just when you think you've got a handle on something, things change, and you have to adapt quickly and efficiently. Jeanette Gregson, CEO of All States Trailer Spurs, said. Right, we are coming to the end of our discussion. Birgit, I would like to ask you, what is a number one book you can sit and think, oh, I wish I read it before I started my career?
Oh, let me be honest, none. I think practice is much more helpful than books. I say this even as a professor. I wouldn't have read a book in advance, or I cannot imagine that a book could have helped me to make the experiences I made by talking to people.
So talking, experiencing, and having the first-hand experience is definitely something that you recommend. Great show, Beata. A lot of insight from Dr. Felden. Thank you very much for that, Mary. Let's go into our favorite question. Are you working on any exciting new projects right now?
Oh, yes. I have two projects I'm actually working on and trying to support. We want to establish, that's the first thing I am doing on with my research group at the university. We want to establish a virtual room to develop and implement innovative solutions for a sustainable transformation of small and medium-sized enterprises through business succession. And this in a structurally weak region of Eastern Germany. So the idea is to combine innovation and startup atmosphere or startup community of Berlin with the necessity of sustainable transformation of SMEs and business succession. And that's a very, very I hope that I could start with that project in June, and I think it's a really interesting. It would be a very, very interesting project. I love to start. And the second project I'm actually on is a digital lab with which successors can develop their concept interactively and in a modern way. It's with videos and with some help, interactive help, and I really love it. It's a new project. Everybody knows the business model canvas. I developed a succession canvas.
Fantastic. Business model canvas is something that is very useful when you start your own startup. So successful canvas is something that we are looking forward. Please pass it on. We will be happy to share it with our community. Right. So we are waiting for metaverse version of Birgit Felden's group. So some new companies. And let's go into the question of, imagine the pandemic is over and you can invite any person in the world to have private breakfast anywhere in the world. Who would you invite and where would you go to?
I would love to invite a very good friend of mine. I get to know her when I was 14. She's living in America, and I did judo in our national team, and I met her in an international competition. And I haven't seen her for so many years now. I met her 5 years ago, and we are talking since the pandemic has started. We need to meet each other, and I would love to invite her to have breakfast with me.
Fantastic. And now another question about your life lesson quote, Birgit.
Yeah, my life lesson quote. I would say, for me, the water glass is always half full, and I would say you have to trust the process, and therefore my life lesson quote is everything has its time. It's a quote from the Bible, and maybe somebody knows it. It's a time there's a time to laugh, there's a time to cry, and so on. And so trust yourself and trust the process. That's what it means for me.
Beautiful quotation. Thank you very much. That's a very ancient book we are reaching towards. Right, it's end of our show. Thank you very much for our lovely guests on the show, people who were asking questions and adding lovely comments. We have got Olga Vasina and Mary asked question. Next week, it's a very different topic, how to improve sexuality education for a healthy future. It is pre-recorded, so unfortunately, no bots will be allowed to make nasty comments about sexuality or things like that. But the good thing is, it is ready. It is going to be streamed next week at 6 p.m. CET, 12 p.m. midday EST. Right, this is the end of our show. As always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes, look for something positive in each day, even if some days you have to look a little harder. Today is your day to hack the future, hack the positivity you want. Thank you, Birgit, for joining us. Thank you, everyone who joined us in the comments section. See you next week.
Bye-bye.